Good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to today's webinar, Online Supports for Every Student, introducing a new Wellbeing Toolkit. Over the course of the next 40 minutes or so, we'll be taking a look at our brand new Being Well, Living Well online toolkit, which published this week. We're so excited to share the toolkit with you and explore how it will enable your institution to provide consistent, preventative mental health and wellbeing support that students can access anytime, anywhere, which is more important now than ever. You'll be hearing from 4 Epigeum representatives over the course of today's webinar. First, I will be kicking things off. My name is Victoria Montgomery, and I am a marketing executive at Epigeum. Then I will be joined by Naomi Wilkinson, our senior commissioning editor, who led the development of Being Well, Living Well, Nick Broom, a senior learning consultant in our implementation team, and finally Alan Stafford, who is our Director of Academic Partnerships. First of all, I will give you a very brief overview of Epigeum and our work before handing over to Naomi. She will give an overview of the collaborative development of Being Well, Living Well, then exploring the toolkit's key features through a live demonstration. We will then hand over to Nick, who will explore some of the ways that the toolkit can be rolled out and integrated into existing wellbeing initiatives at your university. Finally, Alan will give us a summary of some of the subscription options available to you. We'll then wrap up with any questions that you may have. Speaking of questions, everybody on the call today is currently muted to help avoid any audio issues. However, please do get involved and ask any questions that you may have at any time, or you can save them until the end if you prefer. To do that, you should all be able to see a control panel for the GoToWebinar software that we are using today. The panel is normally at the top or on the right-hand side of your screen and can be expanded or hidden by clicking on a white arrow on an orange background. Within the control panel, you should see a questions drop-down where you'll be able to type in your question, which we can then address at the end. So, to start with a very brief summary of who we are and what we do. Epigeum was established as a spin-out company from Imperial College London in 2005, before being acquired by Oxford University Press in 2015, to further the University of Oxford's objective of excellence in research, scholarship, and education by publishing worldwide. Over the past 15 years, Epigeum has developed, hosted, and maintained a wide range of interactive online training courses to support the core activities of higher education institutions around the world. With over hundreds of universities using Epigeum courses to advance the skills and knowledge of their academic and professional staff, researchers, and students. All of Epigeum courses draw on evidence-based learning design, cutting-edge technology, and comprehensive subject knowledge to deliver training of the highest quality across 4 key areas. Those are research, teaching and development, support and wellbeing, and studying. Our support and wellbeing programs, Consent Matters, Responding to Disclosures of Sexual Violence, and Being Well, Living Well, provide students and staff with practical skills and knowledge to build a supportive higher education community. Devised by leading experts in collaboration with universities from across the world, these programs promote positive change and healthy behaviours within the university community and beyond. All of our support and wellbeing programs can be explored on our website, and we have included a support and wellbeing brochure as a handout to accompany this session. You can access that by clicking on the Handouts drop-down tab in your GoToWebinar panel. As part of the support and wellbeing list, we have just published the Being Well, Living Well online toolkit, which will equip students with practical strategies to maintain their mental health and wellbeing throughout their time at university. I will now hand over to Naomi to tell you more about Being Well, Living Well.
Good morning. So the Being Well, Living Well toolkit will enable students to dip in and out of the content depending on their personal needs at a time that suits them. When we first started developing the toolkit, it was evident there was a clear need for resources to support students with their mental health. And that in the current circumstances, I think that need is really heightened. So it's really exciting to see that it's now published. So the toolkit will provide students with realistic strategies for managing their mental, physical, emotional and financial well-being. It'll help them to build self-insight, understand that they're not alone in experiencing challenges in their personal and academic lives, equip them with tips and tools for supporting others, as well as recognising the limitations of being a supporter, ensure students can identify when and where to seek further support if it's needed, and support existing wellbeing initiatives at your institutions with online resources that can be accessed anytime, anywhere. The toolkit is made up of 18 modules. They're around 20 to 30 minutes each, and it's intended to be a dip in and out resource. So it can be used as a preventative tool or at the time of particular need. It is not intended to be a linear course to be taken from start to finish. So strand 1, living well. This strand covers the essential areas of wellbeing for successful study. So that includes your student journey, study life balance, studying well, postgraduate research student wellbeing, eating well and being active. Strand 2, feeling well, includes modules that support mental health, so including confidence, self-esteem and resilience, never good enough, which is about perfectionism, stress, anxiety and depression, and self-harm and suicidal thoughts. Strand 3, staying safe, includes online safety, healthy relationships, sexual health, alcohol and drugs. And finally, the spending well strand, which includes financial awareness, university costs and funding, and living costs. As some of you may know, the majority of EPIGEUM programmes are developed through a process of collaboration between world-class subject experts, partner institutions and in-house specialists. And through this process, we were able to create content of the highest quality whilst sharing the costs, thereby making consistent, cost-effective digital training achievable for all. So the Being Well, Living Well Toolkit has been developed in collaboration with a panel of mental health experts, healthcare professionals and university students and staff. The lead advisors are Dr. Dominique Thompson and Dr. Nicola Reevely, and they've led the direction of the project for both the UK and Australian versions of the toolkit, whilst Nightline Association have contributed as a specialist advisor for the UK. This really was a truly collaborative project, and we brought together a panel of subject experts and higher education professionals to create and review the content. Importantly, we set up a student review panel, primarily to ensure that the content is appropriate, authentic, accessible, and that the student voice came through clearly. And not least, our development group members from various universities in the UK and Australia, who came together at the launch workshop in May last year, alongside authors, advisors, reviewers and EPIGEUM staff. So the two-day workshop included presentations and roundtable discussions to ensure the planned modules would meet the needs of universities and their students. And the development members subsequently reviewed the full online modules with both students and staff feeding into that process. We had an amazing group of really engaged student reviewers, and their feedback has been invaluable. So what did we learn from them? It's important for the modules to be non-judgmental, positive, authentic, and to avoid stereotypes and unconscious bias. We need to be aware of labelling, so it's a fine line between normalisation and trivialisation, and the tone needed to remain supportive throughout. And also to choose terminology really carefully. For example, it may be preferable to say an issue is common rather than normal, so as not to put off students from seeking help. Interestingly, although the feedback from our subject matter experts and university staff warned against including too much scientific information, for example, in the modules on alcohol and drugs and how that affects the body, the students disagreed and were really keen to know more, and that we shouldn't underestimate their levels of understanding. They also didn't want the language to be dumbed down, so the key is in making the messages accessible to all levels. The benefit of having it in an online format is that the clickable glossary terms can be included in the text. At the outset, we designed a strong pedagogy to ensure students are given opportunities for knowledge gain, reflection and personalisation. Learning outcomes were developed at the beginning of the process, although we opted not to list these in the modules themselves, as we don't want the toolkit to feel overly academic. However, they are the foundation on which we built the content, and they are listed in the instructor manual. The Being Well, Living Well programme is designed to engage students in a difficult subject area by providing practical information and strategies. So each module starts with an activity based around dispelling myths before presenting practical information on key wellbeing issues and the strategies that can help to prevent or to manage them. This is then followed up with real student voices and scenarios to provide examples of practical solutions to help reiterate that students are not alone in facing these issues and to reinforce the idea that it's good to talk about their well-being. Finally, we include activities that encourage students to reflect on their own experience and behaviours in order to identify ways to manage or improve their well-being going forward. The features that support our learning design in the toolkit are signposting. So useful links and your context pods will direct students to university services and national organisations as appropriate. The context pods also offer the potential for customisation for those who will be using the programme through their VLE. So universities can include their own specific links, guidelines, policies, etc. Poll activities, which are designed to dispel myths. Videos and bespoke high-quality animations integrated throughout to explore key concepts and themes and to incorporate student opinions. The modules present real student voices and scenarios to provide a normalisation experience. These will also provide an opportunity to represent various student groups, for example, LGBTQ, mature students and international students. Peer supports throughout will provide tips for supporting others and recognising your own limitations as a peer supporter, and action plans at the end of each module where students can build a list of personalised steps to implement rational thinking and behaviours in their academic and personal lives. So I'm just going to take over control of the screen and I'll be able to demonstrate a couple of the modules to you. Okay, so when you click into the programme, you'll see this menu with the 4 strand areas. So you can click on any of the strands and it will reveal the modules below. If you click on show, it gives you a brief description of each module. So we're going to start with the Confidence, Self-Esteem and Resilience module written by Nick Stretfield. When you click into the module, you'll come to the landing page, which includes some signposting to the other modules in that particular strand, which students might also be interested in. You click to the next screen. This is the welcome screen for the module. So it includes information on how to use the module. So for example, you can see here, there's an example with the arrow and the highlighted text. And this explains that before each of the activities in the screens, this is the box that tells you how to navigate through that activity. It talks about the highlighted glossary terms. Importantly, there's a note on confidentiality. So any information that students type into the module, if that's a note-making activity or any answers that they provide through the activities, are completely confidential and they won't be shared with the university. So students can feel really free to use the module in the best way for them. And finally, a summary of the different pod types, and I'll demonstrate some of these as we go through the demonstration. So on this first screen, Developing Confidence, Self-Esteem and Resilience, we've got an example of one of our animations, which I'm going to show you. Unfortunately, you won't be able to hear the voiceover, so unfortunately you'll have to put up with me doing a voiceover on this occasion. When you first start going to lectures, you may well feel nervous. There's a lot to take in. Some of us settle in more quickly than others, so don't worry if you don't feel at home straight away. Sometimes you'll have good days, sometimes you'll have bad days, but all the support and feedback you get is designed to help you learn and develop. It's our job to give you constructive criticism so you can develop your skills and knowledge. It's difficult if you feel like you're struggling, but we all learn from our mistakes. The university provides lots of resources to help you in all kinds of ways, and if you work hard and work smart, your confidence, self-belief and skills will grow. Once you graduate, you'll have a whole new set of challenges to face, so for now, just enjoy this success. If we move on to screen 2, the importance of context, we have a graphic comic strip to start. So this shows common issues in a relatable and accessible way. So students are asked to consider each scenario, think about how the student is experiencing low self-esteem and what they can do to shift their thinking. And if a situation seems familiar to the student, they're asked to reflect on what they might have done in that particular circumstance. So here we have Jack standing alone at a party. He thinks he's very uninteresting and that nobody likes him. So students are asked to type in their thoughts about how Jack is creating a barrier between himself and others at the party. And then they're given some practical feedback to think about how Jack might be more proactive and encourage conversation. And then we can move through and there's some further scenarios. So in the activity below, students can then put this learning into context and consider a situation where they experience self-doubt or low confidence, and then identify those skills that they needed to overcome that. We're going to move on to the supporting others screen. So here we have an action maze. We can select one of the 4 scenarios presented. So here Lucy is worried that her housemates don't like her. And then students are given a selection of responses when Lucy has told them about her worries. Students can read through and select which one they think would be the appropriate advice. And then they're given practical feedback on how that might be good advice or not. So this helps students to consider how to be more compassionate with others, but importantly, compassionate with themselves as well. And here we have an example of one of the peer supports pods. So this one in particular is looking at using active listening to support others. I'm now going to show you a few of the screens from Dom Thompson's module on stress, anxiety and depression. So on the first screen of this module, what do we mean by stress, anxiety and depression? We have a poll. So this asks students to consider and compare their attitudes. So the question is, which of the following feelings or behaviours do you think are a normal part of life, stress, and won't you usually need extra help and support from a professional like a GP or counsellor or a personal tutor? So students can read through the list and select which of these they think is a normal part of stress at university. So being unable to sleep before an exam, being worried about getting a good mark, having a dry mouth, racing heart and sweaty palms. They can then view the results to see what other people have answered. And importantly, the feedback gives practical information about what areas might be considered normal and which areas might be a cause for concern and which they could address. We move on to the third screen, feelings and behaviours. We have some simple information about each of the feelings and behaviours associated with stress and anxiety. And beneath this, we then have students talking about their own experiences of this to really put it into context. So here's a video and it's divided into 3 questions. Each of the questions is a separate video for the students to look at, and they can also show the transcript, which brings up the full transcript along the side of the video. Also in this module, we have a seek help button. So this brings up important phone numbers and links to organisations that can offer immediate help for students. This screen on looking after yourself and healthy behaviours for depression. First of all, we have an opinions activity where we're given 2 students. You can select which student you would like to read about. So Tom, who's feeling a lack of enthusiasm for his course in recent weeks, he can't get motivated to do his work. He's feeling generally quite down and finding it hard to sleep and switch off. So what would you advise him to do in that situation? The students can then choose from the 2 options, and then they'll be given practical feedback. So having considered the scenarios and the feedback, we're then taken to this painting activity, which allows students to reflect on their own situation and identify the strategies that might work for them. So here they can colour code which of these activities they already do, which things they would like to try, which things they might need support to do, and which things they're not likely to try. Once they've completed the activity, they can view the summary, so then they can either copy and paste or print that summary out so they can use it again in future. We move on to the next screen, when, how and where to get support. So we have a tabbing activity here. There's important signposting and practical advice. So when to ask for help, useful phrases that you can use when you're speaking to a professional for the first time, for example, where to go for that help and what that support might look like. Again, we have a seek help button and a your context button that universities, again, can customize this and add in specific resources here. In the activity below, we then have another opinions and scenario activity where there are 6 students to choose from. So this allows us to represent students from a diverse range of backgrounds to make sure that it's really representative of the student body. Students can then click on whichever student they want to read about. Miles is worried about how to help his cousin with his mental health. So it asks students to consider the barriers that each of these students are facing, and then you can check your answer, and it gives, again, practical advice about how to overcome those barriers. A useful links pod here. Then we move to the module summary. So this is a brief summary of the key takeaway messages from the module. And finally, onto the action plan, which allows students to build a personalised list of strategies. There are some ideas already identified in the list, and if they want to remove them, they simply click on the cross, and then they can add their own items into their checklist and view the summary. Again, they can print this to take away and use in the future. We then have the resource bank, which is divided into sections according to each topic, any references from the module, and finally the module completion, where students can click to show that they've completed the module, which will be then recorded with your institution. And they can provide course feedback, which will come through to us as well. So that's it for the demonstration. And I'll now hand over to Nick, who will explore the implementation approaches institutions could take for complementing existing wellbeing initiatives.
Thank you, Naomi. We're aware, perhaps now more than ever, that students may well need a way to access support anytime, anywhere, and to be able to dip in and out of content according to their specific needs, schedule, and even location in the world. The Being Well, Living Well toolkit can either be embedded into your virtual learning environment or learning management system, and we'll give you the files in order to do this, or access can be provided through our own dedicated online platform. There are advantages to both methods of delivery, but in either case, this online format means that students truly can determine where and when they want to engage with the resources. And I'll go into more detail on this in a moment. And in fact, this flexible self-paced format can also facilitate a blended approach, whereby the online learning component is supplemented through other forms of support. We'll also provide the tools you need to get started with this, including a promotional asset pack of materials, which will be touched on in a moment, and an instructor manual which contains activities that you could use to link the online program to a workshop. As a learning consultant, my role is really to ensure that your institution has the support it needs to successfully utilize and evaluate an FPGM program. And in the case of the Being Well, Living Well toolkit, there are various factors that I'd be asking you to consider as we work together to devise a strategic rollout of the resource in order to truly make it work for you and your users. Some of the key areas that we'd be looking at would include the makeup of your project team. So for instance, your project champions. One development group member university has formed a team of digital project champions who've been tasked to create wellbeing support videos, which can then be integrated into the program. Also, do think about all the stakeholders who will need to be involved and who are affected by this initiative. And then, of course, the target audiences. The plan amongst the UK development group members at the moment is to target first-year students to begin with. I'm also looking forward to working with new members, the Shannon Consortium in Ireland, which comprises Sligo, Galway, Mayo, and Letterkenny Institutes of Technology. Also, in terms of course delivery, will the program be hosted on your VLE or LMS or on the FPGM platform? More on that in a moment. What didactic approach will be taken? All FPGM courses are designed ideally for a blended learning approach, but will depend on objectives and resources available at your institution. Again, development group members really like the dip in and dip out aspect of Being Well, so it will probably be used initially as a standalone support, but a blended approach will be assessed further down the line. We can also help you plan the rollout. So for Being Well, making one or more strands available before the students arrive at the university is being considered by several of the development group members. We provide a very full asset pack of materials to support you in raising awareness of the program, and as I mentioned before, I'll share more on that in a moment. Customization is an option for you. This is where an assessment is made as to whether you need to insert localized content, whether it is regional, national, or institution-specific content. While you're analyzing if and what to customize, we can give you access to the course on our platform. I will now give a little bit more detail about this in the next slide. So customization for your institution. There are two options available at the moment. The first is to access the program via the FPGM platform. You would simply create a page on your VLE containing the link to the FPGM platform and could add any localized information there. This is the easiest way of supplying local content, as it doesn't involve customizing the actual program, but nonetheless it can still be very effective. Secondly, as mentioned earlier, the program can be uploaded to your VLE, whether it's customized or not. To customize requires a knowledge of working in HTML, which your IT department will be able to do. We usually find the issue is normally booking in their time. We allow customization to be carried out by the institution in certain elements of the program. Your context pods, the resource banks. You may add, hide, delete screens, and also edit the quizzes. We do not permit the altering of core content for both IP and technical reasons. An example of customization in this program would be adding a link to a university support line or service in one of your context pods down the side. We're currently working on developing learning tools interoperability, known as LTI, which we hope will bring the best of both worlds, the ability to make some key customization, but using the user's university login. We will send out more information about this once we are nearer to completion of the project. Implementation approaches. As I mentioned before, I'm working closely with the development group members in the UK, discussing their implementation plans. I'd like to share with you a few of the elements that most of them have in common. Firstly, there is the desire to make the program available to users as soon as possible, in some cases not waiting to customize the course and either putting it up as it is on the institution's VLE or accessing the material via the Epigeum platform, at least for a certain initial period. Even before COVID-19, many were and are planning on including some or all of Being Well, Living Well in pre-arrival induction packs. A related initiative was to set up self-care in-person workshops divided by 100 students in the same subject area at the time, given in the early days after arrival on campus. COVID will probably affect how this is achieved with this upcoming intake. As I mentioned earlier, all development group members have recognised the importance of project champions in helping to spread the word, and some have targeted residential life staff, directors of education and student experience, and wellbeing advisors. Most institutions plan to customise the programme in some way at some point. One university is already planning on one of the most popular types of customisation, adding a video by a senior staff member. One specific example is a PVC for student experience who will be filming an introduction to the programme, and this will be added to a new screen at the beginning of the course before the programme is uploaded to the institution's VLE. We provide a comprehensive asset pack of customizable materials to help you to promote Being Well, Living Well and drive engagement as part of your existing wellbeing initiatives. This asset pack includes introductory documents and presentations, a customizable and printable poster, bookmark and artwork template for printing on premium promotional items, along with digital adverts and email banners for your staff to use to signpost students to the toolkit. We also provide a variety of materials to help your institution to promote Being Well, Living Well on social media. At the moment, a particularly important way of building an online community to share wellbeing resources with students. We will provide you with suggested messaging for promoting particular modules and strands of Being Well, Living Well on your social media channels, as well as plenty of image cards, a GIF, and of course, artwork to share. We'll also provide an interactive social media calendar to share with your social media teams, with key awareness days around the world for mental health and well-being, and suggestions as to which part of the toolkit you could share with students on that particular day. We hope that these materials will fully equip you with the tools to drive engagement and help students to make the most of the toolkit. I'd be delighted to take questions relating to implementation at the end, and in the meantime, I will hand over to Alan.
Thank you, Nick. So Being Well, Living Well is available on 1 year and discounted 3-year subscriptions, with the option of paying annually to support university budgets given the current COVID-19 circumstances. As you can see here, we offer an early subscriber discount of an additional 20% off the already discounted 3-year subscription for any institutions that sign up before the end of July. We also offer free 2-week trials so that you and your colleagues and potentially students can review the content before you subscribe. So please contact me on alan.stafford@oup.com if you would like us to set up a free trial for you and your institution.